Here's an experiment for you. Take passionate experts in human resource technology. Invite cross-industry experts from inside and outside HR. Mix in what's happening in people analytics today. Give them the technology to connect. Hit record. Pour their discussions into a beaker. Mix thoroughly. And voila, you get the HR Data Labs podcast, where we explore the impact of data and analytics to your business. We may get passionate and even irreverent, but count on each episode challenging and enhancing your understanding of the way people data can be used to solve real-world problems. Now, here's your host, David Turetsky.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky, alongside my friend, colleague, and co-host, Dwight Brown from Salary.com. Dwight, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, David?
I'm good. I'm very good. Because today we have with us Anna Tavis, who is the Department Chair for Human Capital Management at this really small school in New York City called NYU. Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dwight and David.
My pleasure. By the way, I love NYU. I had gone there right after I graduated college, and I thought it was one of the best experiences I had at school. So very excited to talk to Anna. But first, Anna, why don't you give us a little bit of background on you and what you do at NYU?
So I am really fortunate to be at NYU. I love the school, David. We're very innovative. And when I joined after a career in the corporate world, about 15 years in senior HR roles, like the head of global talent for AIG. And I spent about 8 years in Europe working for big Fortune 50 companies multinationally. So when I got back to New York, NYU was a welcoming home for a returning academic. And what was so exciting to me is that the ability to emerge, to marry my work experience with the professional education. And I think what we're doing here is really reinventing what higher ed should be for professionals such as our HR colleagues who come to us with some level of experience, 3 to 5 years, and some even at the end of their career, because we have programs in human capital management, but our recent orientation has been on analytics technology, AI, because we think HR professionals all need to be skilled in those disciplines. And we also have a program in executive coaching and organizational consulting, a Master's of Science degree, which is actually unique in the US. We were just accredited by International Coach Federation, the only program in North America that has been accredited by ICF. And what we found that all HR disciplines really translate so well into that kind of lens of analytics technology and now AI. We look at the future of the profession, and that's where we want to play a leading role.
That's wonderful. Well, we're going to get into that in a lot more detail. But first, Anna, as we do every episode of the HR Data Labs podcast, what's one fun thing that no one knows about Anna Tavis?
Oh, there are a couple of things, David, and some people know it. First of all, I've been a really dedicated yoga practitioner for 25 years and even more, and traveled to India every year, and I really kind of followed that path of meditation and mindfulness, etc. And I always tend to go to the Mecca of where things really originate from. And those are my trips to India. And then the second thing is about 15 years ago, I picked up Argentine tango. And in 6 months after doing that, I went to Argentina and realized that very few people spoke English there. So I picked up Spanish. And it's really interesting how one passion leads to many others. But this is the way I balance my life. And, on the one hand, there's research and teaching and all of professional activities. But on the other, there's this outlet of mindfulness, meditation, and dancing.
It's a wonderful balance.
Thank you.
So we can definitely count on this being not only an exciting podcast, but also a very calm podcast as well.
Yeah, we can definitely do a mindfulness exercise at the end to make
That'll be
sure
it.
everything sinks in.
David and I should probably practice a little more of that.
We all do. We all do. I
Let's
think
keep that
that's
in mind.
prescribed by our, right now, that's a situation we're trying to figure out for ourselves, right? We need to have more
Absolutely.
mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So let's get into our topic for today. It's a fascinating one, and it's one that I think a lot of us are very interested in given a lot of the headlines about artificial intelligence. Today's topic is digital coaching and the transformation of what coaching has become. So the first question, Anna, is give us a little bit about the background of coaching or the history of coaching.
Hey, everybody. Got a quick question for you. Is your job easy, stress-free, and full of rainbows and sunshine every single day? Yeah, I'd say that's a big fat no. Hi, I'm David Noe, host of Speakeasy HR, presented by Payroll Partners, and proud to be part of the Work-Defined community. Take a step down into my Speakeasy live on LinkedIn and YouTube, where we tackle HR and business challenges through raw, uncut, unfiltered conversations. This is HR like you've never heard it before. Bold, real, and full of practical takeaways. Real guests, bold insights, authentic conversations that drive change. Catch every episode on demand through your favorite podcast platform or all the content at speakeasyhr.com.
And the history of coaching, in the upcoming book, which we're going to publish in the spring of 2024, we write about the roots of coaching really go back to Greece and Rome, as we all know. Socratic dialogue is really the foundational sort of technique of question and answer, where you're not really definitive or directive about eliciting, ideas and solutions, but rather leading a conversation and leading your interlocutors to the point where they make their own decisions in the end. So I think looking at that and how it evolved, then the word coaching itself really is absolutely fascinating and goes back to England. And a coach was a person who accompanied students in these elite institutions like Oxford and Cambridge across campus in the coach, which is a vehicle, so that was a kind of a side job that people did, chaperoning students around campus and taking us back to campus. So that's where the word came from and kind of the technique emerged. But the actual emergence of the coaching as we know it today goes back to obviously the 19th and 20th century, where psychology as a subject matter and exploration and research into human behavior started to merge. Goes back, to European tradition with psychoanalysis, and it's a fairly recent, from the science perspective, development. And I think it's really, really relevant to us because I, myself and my co-author, Woody Woodward, who's also a faculty at NYU, we see this paradigm of, deep insight into human psyche being radically transformed through the technologies that are emerging in the 21st century. So coaching as we knew it, and we're really still practicing in a majority of cases today, is this kind of human-to-human interactions of questions and answers is going to be mediated, and it's beginning to happen at scale through these technologies that are now available to us. And that was what we wrote about in the book.
But in terms of the history and talking about where it's been, a lot of the things that I grew up with in corporate world, and especially as I was in the practitioner world in compensation, was when we talked about coaching, we were talking about executives getting people who could help them through changes in the business world or changes in their environment or changes that we saw as developmental exercises. And so it was really kind of distinctly positioned at the executive levels or the executive ranks or even the senior individual contributors who you invested in coaches specifically for transitions or transactions that needed, or that assessments that kind of focused on a deficit up there.
Yes, that's true. In the executive coaching is a specific area of coaching that was really very lucrative for some of the coaches who engaged in that, but it was a very small minority. And if you think about, and that's again a part of our coaching revolution message, is that it was very limited to the senior ranks in the organization.
Right.
People who received coaching were, really primed for the next level. Or the other side of coaching was obviously deficiency coaching, when a senior executive who was a rainmaker, bringing in a lot of sales to the company, et cetera, but at the same time had those behavioral issues, and particularly people management. And it was in many cases sort of a token gesture on behalf of, let's say, senior HR people to say, oh, we are trying to help this person improve their interpersonal skills. But given your backgrounds, we know that if the incentive system is set up in such a way that doesn't encourage any or doesn't punish any such behavior, bad behavior, the coaching was just the window dressing for improving the actual management skills and management style of those people. So the effectiveness of executive coaching was always kind of in question. It came too little, too late, to a very small group of people, and it worked, but it was a luxury item.
Yes. So let's get to the next question, which I think kind of is the lead into what you were talking about your book. And by the way, we're going to have links to your book in the show notes so that people can pre-order it. And the second question is, how does that change when we talk about the introduction of new technologies?
Yes, I think this is really important. And there's one word for how it's changing fundamentally, and that is democratization of coaching.
Got it.
All of a sudden, what was not available to any coach or people who needed coaching is scale.
Right.
You couldn't scale it. And now with technology, the first step in digitizing coaching or creating platforms through which coaching is being delivered is that it's able to be spread much broader in the organization and go deeper into the ranks in the organization. And a lot of it was actually energized and created as a result of the pandemic, and people found themselves sitting at home at their screens, similar to, I compare it, for example, in the book to telemedicine and therapy. All of a sudden, what was not allowed to be done before, we found a way to deliver those kinds of services through the media and the medium of online. So first we went to online, which is still kind of phase one in the introduction of this digital coaching, because you're still interfacing with a live human being. It's just that you don't have to be in the same place.
Right.
But interestingly enough, as we were doing research on the book, I went through some discussions shortly before the pandemic, 2018, and other meetings of coaches where there was a big fight around whether coaching whether it was ethical to deliver coaching via Skype. Remember the Skype technology? Yeah. No one knows what that is anymore. But because the coaches, obviously the executive coaches, those elite coaches, as we know them, were very much objecting to the fact that, something like the interpersonal connection could be delivered through technology. And obviously all of those conversations were forgotten the minute the pandemic started, and all of these much better platforms that started to emerge. So democratization and scaling of coaching is, I think, the first step in what we call the digital coaching revolution.
So out of curiosity, I when it comes to online in the world of work, there's a lot of argument about the effectiveness of it and the productivity that goes with it. And it actually kind of touches on what you've just talked about. What is the prevailing thought out there about using digitized coaching, if you will?
Yeah. Dwight, we didn't even get to the real, interesting topic that revolution that occurs, and that's AI coaching, where there's no human involved, and we can get there. That will be the next step. But as far as the scale, I think the pandemic really helped us bridge that divide. As far as productivity in the workplace goes, one of the outcomes of working online was the burnout. That was the burnout and isolation. And in fact, online coaching and membership with these licenses of these coaching platforms was one of the solutions that companies were thinking of introducing and brought in. That's what kind of was behind this absolute wave of an expansion of the ecosystem of these platforms like BetterUp, Ezra, Bravely, pretty much even traditional companies like CCL and Korn Ferry started to introduce online interfaces with their coaches. So I think the pandemic kind of accelerated that process. It was a huge accelerator for what we're talking about. So as far as productivity is concerned, I think that was considered to be a solution to the burnout, to isolation, to loneliness that people experience, similar to what we see in therapy and telemedicine.
Okay.
However, the difference is that, and I think you touched on this before, is that therapists need to be in the same state because of licensure that the people need to be in. Whereas from a coaching perspective, you could be anywhere in the world and be an effective coach because there is no licensure issue with an executive or non-executive coach, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think that's where some of the coaching, digital coaching providers, the platforms, they're actually developing what they call wellness and well-being services that are sort of borderline on therapy, but they can really still help with a lot of those issues if they don't cross over into the clinical field.
Right.
And there is a whole protocol around the efficacy of such coaching where if there is a chance that a potential coachee or the client of the coach might be needing clinical help, that's being transferred to a therapist who should be licensed and is certified differently than your regular coach. But what's really interesting to me, and I also reflected it in the book, that the telemedicine companies that provide more, clinical help and assistance with psychiatric and other types of issues, they started to branch out and develop their own medical coaching solutions that have a different certification process. They're not quite clinical and don't require medical training.
Okay.
They're trained in the coaching skills, but they're kind of that transitional phase where before you actually get to a psychiatrist, you can get help with your behavioral issues, etc., from a medical coach. So there are all of these emerging, differentiating stages of coaching that we can see when it comes to digitizing coaching that was not available before.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
So now let's take it to the next level, which is having a person talk to a computer, or if it's not vocal, because it could be, textual interaction through generative AI. So, Anna, are we going to be talking to robots, and are they going to be able to solve our problem?
Totally, we are. We're already talking to robots. And, I was just reviewing as my homework the movie that came out in 2013, Her. If you haven't seen this movie, you should definitely see it. Not only are we already talking, it's been there. This technology existed for quite some time. the examples of that will be Series and Alexas. They were not able to accelerate those developments until all of a sudden ChatGPT was released into the public at this scale. But we're already seeing, chatbots existed for a while, and now we are seeing that the new coming out in our time is how quickly you realize that you're talking to a robot. And now it takes, how many interactions does it take for people to realize that they're actually talking to a machine? And oftentimes people don't realize that. It really depends on the nature of their issues, et cetera.
Sure.
But, and I can give you multiple examples of how it works.
Well, but before you get to the examples, I think one of the problems that we've had, especially with the examples you gave of the Series and the Alexas, is the second and third prompt, right? The first prompt is typically a what do you want? And the second or third prompt tries to get to the more detailed issue that you're having. And they never could get to the right place, especially for those of us who've tried to get some customer support from a organization that put the robot between you and the humans. And you tried your best to use the AI, but it never actually worked. So you would get very frustrated and type in all caps operator or real person or something to be able to then have somebody who can solve your problem. That's going away, right? I mean, is the AI learning more about how to actually respond to people and the variability between people?
Yeah, not only that, I think what you're going to see, and you're seeing already, like generative AI, is that as the more you talk to the robot, the more it kind of pivots toward who you are and molds the responses in the style that you represent. And I think it's already clear in our interactions in ChatGPT's, more advanced versions of it. And the area of my research right now is what I called emotion AI that is empathetic, AI that is reading the person's emotional state and can respond in a appropriate way. So that's where those technologies are heading toward it. So it's not just a purely transactional interactions that we all experience, like with our banks,
right?
But it's getting into the emotional state. And in the example I want to give you that you're probably aware of, heard about, is this company Replica that was developed by a woman CEO who lost her friend. And then she decided to recreate that friend through a chatbot. It basically is an online dating service. Right now, there are some, scrutiny that was put around it, but it's similar to the movie Her. It's an online dating service where people can create this avatar, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever they choose, and really custom build that particular persona in the AI environment. And I think the dangers of this type of, service, let's put it that way, is that it becomes addictive, that people withdraw from the actual interactions because they don't even develop the skills of interacting with imperfect humans.
Exactly.
Because they have these perfectly tuned up robots who are very responsive and, turn to them in the way that they're expected from this particular person. So it's a very new area of research, of innovation, that what we don't know is how humans are going to relate to the capabilities that AIs are bringing to us in new ones on a daily basis.
It makes sense. It's sort of this layering on of a different realm, if you will, of interacting, like you said, there's a perfection in the AI, and we're all looking for perfection in the personal interactions. And I can see that really spills over to the area of coaching, where part of coaching is giving hard messages that the person doesn't want to hear. And is the AI going to do that? Is it going to be able to process that? Or are we just looking for somebody who serves to be an echo chamber for us? And we lose the impact of the coaching that goes with that.
Right. Well, I was also going to go to the question of how does that coaching then become effective in being able to read the culture of the company, the culture of the person, the issue and the situation, the legalities of the specific issue that the person's dealing with. I mean, the coach could they could read all of the, like, for example, New York State code of interstate commerce and also all the labor relations code and everything to understand if a manager creates this complex issue that they need help with, instead of coming to HR, they can use their coaching app to figure something out. But still, there are so many things that they'd have to take into consideration. It's almost mind-boggling that HR can do it, but then could a robot do it?
Yeah.
And I guess the answer is
yeah. That's a big question right now. What we know and what's used at scale is the platforms, right? So where employees in organizations, who have licenses with BetterUp, let's say, they're in multiple countries. They have a matching technology similar to what we do in recruitment, or, the dating services, right? We kind of figured it out there at scale as well. So they have matching technologies where they're trying to connect to the right human, and they're still employing a lot of humans. So that's what's been done at scale. And it's been done, at different levels in their organization, all the way to the entry point, onboarding services, just speaking in practical terms, as well as to, David, your very good reference to managers. Like if I want to have a difficult performance management conversation, I can just jump on a call with a coach. And because my company, that's one of the benefits that the company provides, that
Right.
I could just go in and just in time, when needed, have that interaction with a real former HR person who is ICF certified, et cetera. That's what's happening now. That's a reality. AI is coming in, and what we're seeing, and in fact, we are experimenting also at NYU. We this year we gave all of our students an AI coach for a very specific, totally chatbot, no human being there, but it's very specific, prescribed goal setting. We want all of our incoming students to set their goals, and they have this online chat with the coach who sets the milestones, who holds them accountable, asks them the right questions. They have videos if they want to refer to. So that's purely automated thing that a lot of times that's what the professors used to do. And what was the professor's capacity of sitting there with an open door policy?
Right.
This time it's asynchronous at any point, midnight. Students can find this type of coach available to them. So I think what we're seeing is, those kind of routine tasks, and that's where technology is, are already available. They're easy, and they're in fact much better in a lot of cases than the humans, because humans get tired. There's limits to how many office hours I can hold. These AI guys are always there. They're customized to you. They track your goals. They remind you. They're flexible, etc. However, what you refer to, I think this is what's called working at the top of your license in medical field. The edge cases, the situations that require, complex decision making,
Exactly.
non kind of traditional situations where there needs to be, a complex set of factors to be considered. That's where you involve the human. I'll give you an example, because I don't think it's just in executive coaching. But for example, in addition to all of my hobbies, I picked up gardening.
There you go.
In the pandemic, and I got an app that is an AI-enabled app that tells me all about the plants, why they're dying. Half of my plants are dead because I'm a novice in this field. Huh. But what was interesting to me, it can help me up until a certain point.
Yeah.
And then it says, here's a link you can connect to a coach. You can connect to a gardening coach. Somebody, if I can't solve my problems through this kind of routine diagnosis, I can connect to an experienced gardener
Right.
who can walk me through. And I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see in every performance reviews, salary considerations. I'm going to have a conversation with my manager. How
Right.
do I prepare for it? There will be a set of standard routine tasks. And then there will be a link that will say, if your issues are not resolved, please connect to the life coach.
And one of the things, though, that hopefully the AI will get to is the ability to, in the moment, be able to provide coaching. So when, let's say you're my boss and you and I are having a conversation and you're giving me a performance message, that the AI is listening to you and I both. And to your point before, have emotional intelligence to understand, the coach gives you real-time feedback that says, seems like David is veering off course. You may want to bring him back. And here's a couple of statements you might be able to use in order to understand how to bring him back. First of all, mention all the great things he did last year. And here are 3 examples, right? Or let's talk about performance management. And don't forget, we have to set goals for next year. So here are examples of the ways in which we can improve together by using examples of good performance management technique and being able to set goals in the moment at that point in time. Now, a human can't do that unless you have another person on the call. But if it's just you and I, Anna, and you're giving me feedback, that can happen. And typically that does happen today in the world of customer support, right?
Mm-hmm.
Customer support representatives have that kind of bug in their ear, as it were, where they can use either the computer or someone else to be able to provide them that kind of insight. So is that where the AI is actually headed? So it's the in the moment, and to your point before with emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. And on top of that, David, don't forget that when the coach is brought into the situation, they can have a complete readout of data of what actually happened before. So you're not coming in cold and trying to figure out in the moment what the person is telling you. You're going to have, a whole history of that particular person that will be delivered to you before you go into that conversation. So what we're seeing is that it's not just the technology will be brought in as a medium, but a different skill set for coaches is going to be required. So,
Right.
those intuitions that are absolutely not going away and very needed. However, they will need to be based and integrated with the data that will be delivered to them through AI.
Hey, are you listening to this and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could talk to David about this? Well, you're in luck. We have a special offer for listeners of the HR Data Labs podcast. A free half-hour call with me about any of the topics we cover on the podcast or whatever is on your mind. Go to salary.com/HRDL consulting to schedule your free 30-minute call today. So let's transition to the third question, because I think this is it brings it home for the people listening. How do we prepare for digital coaching? What are we going to do? How do we get our arms wrapped around it, our heads wrapped around it? How do we prepare?
I think we just have to do it, just like Nike, right? Just do
Right.
it.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Something with both feet. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It's so. First of all, most of the systems we use at work are going to have embedded AI
Sure.
tools. So, like Microsoft is working on it. It's already built into Google. The search engines, our phones are going to be buzzing with these tools. So just be on the lookout and see. Obviously, we're not even touching on issues of privacy, et cetera, because there's a big conversation going on. But the genie is out of the bottle. It's there. I think what we need to do is really become adept at using those tools for our purposes, because a professional with a bot will always win over a professional without the bot. Those who are resistors. These are the conversations we're having, for example, with professional coaches.
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of resistance, interestingly enough, and not surprisingly, that comes from within the profession more so than from people who actually need coaching services, right?
Yeah.
That are saying, no way, I'm so effective as I worked so hard to get to this level, et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. No, overnight, you're going to
Right.
be replaced to a certain extent. So how you understand and how you, as a coach, for example, where you need to play and at what point you need to bring these tools to do the work for you, become definitely data literate,
Right.
even though, AI is actually taking us to the next level. It's going to be very accessible, but then still connecting to the client is going to be the priority at the human level, because all of the prep work is going to be done. And then as far as us operating in this environment, as I mentioned with my gardening, it's going to be available to all everywhere. So we can be upskilled and reskilled so much
Right.
faster than before, because we will have a coach, what I call a coach, but it will be that tutor or, co-pilot or whatever assistant, whatever the word is being used now, built in anywhere, everywhere, every skill. You're assembling your IKEA furniture, there will be a coach for you to do it the right way.
Unfortunately, it speaks Swedish though, so we won't understand it.
Yeah. No, everything you will have your translation
I'm
right
just kidding.
away, right? That's
Right.
another
Right.
thing.
Right.
Translation, it's incredible what's possible now. And I think the biggest unknown, David and Dwight, I think in this next phase is for us to really understand how the humans are going to react, respond, and adapt, because that's the biggest unknown. Not the technology is going to march on, and it's going to try to imitate the humans in the closest possible way, but
Sure.
we don't know how it's going to affect us individually. We still have to be really looking at how it will help communities, organization, and in general society. Lots of unknowns, lots of questions, and that's why there are concerns that are being raised. But as I said, it's happening, and we are going to be a well-coached society. We just have to make sure that it's taking us in the right direction.
I think one of the things you can count on, if you haven't been using your phone lately and text messaging people, and you see the things that the phone or the text app suggests as the next word, it's already in part of our lives, whether you use Grammarly, and we've actually, and other technologies, we've also seen ADP and Workday and some other HRIS and payroll systems that have built AI into their next generation tools, where people can ask more complex questions, whether it's a manager and performance management, the example we were talking about before, or whether it's someone who's looking at their benefits and the balances they have left. So those things are creeping into our environment, whether we like it or not. It's actually happening. We're actually living it. And, buy a new car that doesn't have some kind of AI, not necessarily for driving, but for operating the vehicle outside of the driving. It's there already.
And there's a coach there. For example, I've been looking at this company, Effective Computing, out of MIT, a lot of work in the driver psychology, like, for example, commuter sentiment, road rage, all of those
Right.
kinds of things that AI can actually, you drive a car now and they tell you you've been driving too long without a stop, take a break. And,
Right.
A coffee cup comes in on the dashboard to tell you, obviously, all of these nudges that are built in. But we're going to see it again. We're going to see it everywhere.
Even in the simplest way of it saying, well, you only have 100 miles distance till empty.
Yeah.
That's a coach, right? Or the EVs, the electronic vehicles that tell you, put your foot less on the gas and a little bit more on the brakes so we can regenerate some battery. That's coaching as well.
Yeah.
It's there. It's part of our lives, and accept it or move out of the way.
Exactly. And again, I think this is why I think more research in human behavior, and obviously onboarding all of our colleagues in HR into what it would mean and paying attention and having discussions like this one, I think is really, really important.
Well, Anna, I think we've just scratched the surface, and I think we'd have to have you back to talk a little bit more about this, maybe closer to when your book gets released, so we can also get people to order it when it's actually live. But thank you very much. This has been amazing, a great conversation, and please come back again so we can go a level deeper.
I'll be happy to. It's a very exciting topic and a scary one at the same time. Thank you so much, David and Dwight.
Thank you for being with us. We appreciate everything. It's been fascinating.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Anna. And thank you all for listening. Take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.